February 1815. The world thinks the nightmare is over. The man who reshaped Europe is confined to a tiny Mediterranean rock, a shadow of his former self. But Napoleon Bonaparte does not accept the verdict of fate. From his villa in Portoferraio, he watches the horizon, waiting for a single mistake from his enemies. In Vienna, the victors are busy dividing the spoils. They squabble over territories, oblivious to the fact that the ghost of the empire is about to haunt them once more. Information reaches Elba. King Louis XVIII is unpopular. The French army is humiliated. The people remember the glory, and they are hungry for its return. On the night of February 26th, the Eagle slips his cage. With just 1,000 loyal veterans and 7 small ships, he sets sail for a destination that will shock the world. March 1st, Golfe Juan. The landing is quiet, but its impact will be felt from London to Moscow. Napoleon is back on French soil. He issues a proclamation to the people. The Eagle will fly from steeple to steeple until it reaches the towers of Notre Dame. The march to Paris begins. Avoiding the royalist strongholds of the coast, he plunges into the treacherous mountain passes. This is the route Napoleon, a path carved in legend and audacity. In the Tuileries, King Louis is incredulous. He orders the army to stop the monster. But he forgets that these soldiers were once Napoleon's children. March 7th, near Grenoble, the two forces meet. The royalist commander gives the order, "Make ready, aim." The air is electric with tension. Napoleon walks into the range of their rifles. "Soldiers of the 5th, I am your emperor. If there is one among you who would kill his general, here I am." The silence breaks, not with lead, but with a roar that shakes the mountains. Vive l'Empereur! The 5th Regiment defects en masse. The king's wall has crumbled. It is an avalanche. At every town, the garrison joins him. The monster of Elba is now the savior of France, and his army grows with every mile. Marshal Michel Ney, the bravest of the brave, promises King Louis he will bring Napoleon back in an iron cage. It is a promise he will find impossible to keep. On March 14th, the two old comrades meet. Ney looks into the eyes of his emperor, and his resolve vanishes. He falls into Napoleon's arms. The king is truly alone. March 20th, Napoleon enters Paris. King Louis has fled hours before. The Eagle has landed on the towers of Notre Dame. The 100 days have begun. The shockwaves hit Vienna like a thunderbolt. The Allied powers declare Napoleon an outlaw. They don't just want him defeated, they want him erased from history. Great Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia form the 7th Coalition. Each pledges 150,000 men. 1 million soldiers are marching to crush one man. France becomes a giant forge. Napoleon works 18 hours a day, mobilizing the nation. He creates an army from nothing, but time is his greatest enemy. By June, he has the Armée du Nord, 128,000 veterans. It is a magnificent force, but it is small compared to the tide coming against him. Napoleon's strategy is classic. He must strike the gap between the British and the Prussians. If he can defeat them separately, the coalition might collapse. If they unite, he is lost. June 15th. The French cross the River Sambre into Belgium. The invasion is a complete surprise. Wellington is caught off guard at a ball in Brussels. While the music plays in Brussels, the first shots are fired. Wellington receives the news mid-dance. "Napoleon has humbugged me, by God," he exclaims. The dance of death has begun. June 16th. Ligny. Napoleon slams into the Prussians. It is a brutal, close-quarters fight in the village streets. The Prussian lines are bent, but they do not snap. The 72-year-old Blücher is thrown from his horse during a charge. He lies pinned in the mud while French riders gallop over him in the darkness. He is nearly lost, but his spirit is unyielding. Nearby, at Quatre Bras, Marshal Ney is fighting Wellington for control of the crossroads. It is a bloody stalemate. Ney is hesitant, and that hesitation gives the British time to survive. June 17th. Both sides are exhausted. Wellington retreats north to a ridge he had scouted before. Then, the heavens open. A terrifying thunderstorm turns the world to mud. That night is a hell of cold and mud. Thousands of men huddle without shelter, knowing that the morning will bring either victory or the grave. Napoleon, ill and in pain, waits for the sun. Sunday, June 18th. The sun rises over the field of Waterloo. Napoleon delays the attack, waiting for the mud to dry. a delay of hours that gives the Prussians time to march. The stage is set. 72,000 Frenchmen against Wellington's 68,000 allies. But Blücher is coming with 30,000 more. It is a race against time. 11:30 a.m. The battle erupts at Hougoumont. What was meant as a diversion becomes a bloodbath. The French pour thousands into the orchard, but the British guards hold the gates shut. At 1 p.m., the Grand Battery speaks. 80 cannons unleash a curtain of iron. The ground of Belgium shakes under the weight of French artillery. The Allied centre is shrouded in fire. D'Erlon's corps, 6,000 men, moves forward. They are the hammer of the Emperor. They march uphill, bayonets glinting, a wall of blue and steel that seems unstoppable. Just as the French reach the crest, the British heavy cavalry charges. The Union Brigade crashes into the French columns like a tidal wave, smashing them into bloody fragments. The line holds. 4 p.m. Marshal Ney sees movement on the ridge. He thinks Wellington is retreating. He orders a mass cavalry charge. It is the greatest tactical blunder of the century. 9,000 elite cavalry charge into a sea of steel. Wellington's men form hollow squares, fortresses of men and bayonets. The French riders circle them in a desperate, futile dance of death. 6 p.m. The central farmhouse of La Haye-Sainte finally falls. Wellington's centre is wide open. Napoleon has his victory in sight. But the horizon is changing. The Prussians have arrived. Blücher, bloodied but unbowed, has kept his word. The pressure on the French right becomes a crushing weight. Napoleon must win now or never. Napoleon plays his last card. The Imperial Guard, the undefeated veterans of 100 victories. They march into the smoke in an eerie, perfect silence. The fate of Europe is on their shoulders. At the top of the ridge, the British Guards rise from the grass. "Now, Maitland, now is your time." A single, shattering volley rips through the Imperial Guard. They falter. They stop. The impossible happens. The cry goes up. The Guard is retreating. Panic sweeps through the French army. The legend is shattered. The Empire of the 100 Days dies in the mud of Waterloo. 9 p.m. Wellington and Blücher meet at La Belle Alliance. They have pulled off the impossible. The nightmare that plagued Europe for 20 years is finally over. Napoleon flees to Paris, hoping to raise another army, but the political will is gone. He is asked to abdicate. The people who once cheered him are silent. June 22nd, he abdicates for the second and final time. He tries to escape to America, but the British Navy blocks his path. He is truly defeated. The British send him to St. Helena, a remote speck of rock in the South Atlantic, thousands of miles from the world he once ruled. There would be no escape this time. Napoleon would die there 6 years later, but his legacy remains. The 100 Days were the final, epic act of the greatest military mind of his age. The man is gone, but the name is immortal. On St. Helena, the master of Europe becomes a prisoner of memory. He spends his days dictating his memoirs, reshaping the narrative of his life for a future that will never see him again. His world has shrunk to a few damp rooms at Longwood House. The man who once commanded millions is now arguing with his British jailers over the titles he is allowed to use. Waterloo haunts him. He analyzes every mistake, every delay, every missed opportunity. In every battle, he writes, there is a moment when the least maneuver decides the victory. While he withers in the South Atlantic, his legend grows in France. The Napoleonic legend is born, a dream of a liberal, unified Europe that survives his physical defeat. By 1821, the eagle's strength is gone. Struck by stomach cancer, he knows the end is near. His final thoughts are of his son, his army, and the woman he loved, Josephine. May 5, 1821. As a massive storm lashes the island, Napoleon Bonaparte breathes his last. His final words, France, the army, the head of the army, Josephine. 19 years later, his remains are returned to France. He is buried in the heart of Paris, at Les Invalides, under a dome of gold. The eagle has finally come home. His influence was not just on the battlefield. The Napoleonic Code, the metric system, the very idea of the modern nation-state. These are his true victories, surviving long after the cannons fell silent. For the rest of the century, every king and revolutionary in Europe lived in his shadow. He was the scale against which all ambition was measured. To the Romantics, he was the ultimate individual, the man who rose from nothing to conquer everything, a tragic figure of titanic proportions. The 100 Days were more than a military campaign. They were a testament to the power of a single personality to challenge the entire world order. A final, desperate cry for glory. Today, the fields of Waterloo are silent, but beneath the wheat and the grass lie the remains of 50,000 men who died for the dream of an empire. The monument stands as a reminder of the day the world changed, the day the era of the eagle ended and the modern age truly began. His name is etched into the stones of every European capital. He is a villain to some, a hero to others, but forgotten by none. Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "History is a set of lies agreed upon." But the story of the 100 Days is no lie. It is the most epic final act in human history. He remains the eternal sentry of our historical memory, the man who dared to reach for the stars and fell back into the mud of Belgium, but whose flight remains unparalleled. Resting now in his tomb of red stone, the emperor finally finds the peace that eluded him in life. The battle is over. The legend is eternal. In the final moments of the battle, asked to surrender, General Cambronne of the Old Guard allegedly gave a one-word response: "Merde." The Guard dies. It does not surrender. Following the defeat, a wave of white terror swept France. Royalist supporters took revenge on those who had welcomed Napoleon back, a dark postscript to the 100 Days. The Congress of Vienna finally completed its work, establishing a balance of power that would keep the peace in Europe for nearly 40 years. The map of the world was set. Napoleon's greatest victories were not won with cannons. The metric system and the Napoleonic Code spread across the world, modernizing civilization long after his final exile. The era of the eagle ended in the mud of Waterloo, but its flight remains the most epic saga in the history of human ambition. The emperor is gone. The legend is eternal. The final gambit, the 100 Days, the legend of Napoleon Bonaparte, truly an epic for the ages. In the final moments of the battle, asked to surrender, General Cambronne of the Old Guard allegedly gave a one-word response: "Merde." The Guard dies. It does not surrender. Following the defeat, a wave of white terror swept France. Royalist supporters took revenge on those who had welcomed Napoleon back, a dark postscript to the 100 Days. The Congress of Vienna finally completed its work, establishing a balance of power that would keep the peace in Europe for nearly 40 years. The map of the world was set. Napoleon's greatest victories were not won with cannons. The metric system and the Napoleonic Code spread across the world, modernizing civilization long after his final exile. The era of the eagle ended in the mud of Waterloo, but its flight remains the most epic saga in the history of human ambition. The emperor is gone. The legend is eternal.